talk about these regulatory agencies, these are essentially government regulations that have the force of law, but that are made by unelected people that in some way, shape, or form work for the president, but in these huge bureaucratic agencies. And that's so much of our law now, and that's not at all, it would seem, what the Constitution designed for us.
And it is very worrying, especially as you said, the president doesn't necessarily have control over the people who make these decisions. I think that's a big issue coming ahead that maybe a lot of people haven't paid attention to is civil service reform, and allowing the president to essentially change the personnel. Most public civil servants can't lose their jobs. They can't be fired. Even doing criminal things within these agencies, they can't lose their jobs. It's something that would never happen in something like the private sector, and that is worrying. It goes to this idea that people think that there's a kind of swamp in Washington, D.C., there's a kind of deep state, a kind of permanent governance that's uncontrollable, that's unelected. They're pretty much James Madison's worst nightmare. I mean, I really think that's what it's become, is that the idea that we have this kind of unchecked, enormously powerful branch of government that really isn't within the constitutional structure that was created by the founders. That is very worrying. I think that is decimating the American trust in governance. It's decimating American trust in democracy and things like this. And I think that is one of the great challenges that Americans face. So I think there's a lot of reason to be fearful as an American to see that these institutions have been changed in some fundamental way and that we need to change them back again.
And it's particularly concerning when it affects, our law enforcement entities, and people look now at the Justice Department and the FBI, where it seems like you have these bureaucratic agencies that are sort of running themselves, that aren't accountable to anyone, and that are sort of going rogue. And that's a real concern when these are the justice making or justice enforcing entities, and they're perhaps not really accountable to anyone.
And that really strikes the heart of American governance. I mean, it's the idea that, some men put themselves above the laws. And I think that's what a lot of people see, especially what happened with the FBI, some agents thinking that they had a right to try to overturn essentially the election by the American people. They see these kind of decisions. This IRS scandal from years ago. I think it's why I think some people particularly react to these things, because it does strike at the heart of what American governance really is about, where the people rule. It's not about what the IRS says, it's about what the American people want and what the American people believe. To think that these agencies can be weaponized against citizens arbitrarily, I think is a disturbing thing. It's a scary thing. It's something that we see in a lot of countries that are dysfunctional or tyrannical or banana republics, as we call them. And I think that's a very un-American thing to do. And I think there's a very good reason to be worried about this and return to what people see as constitutional governments. The American people, through the electoral college system, elect a president. They expect the president to do certain things. If he has agencies that are openly at war with the president can't do anything. I think that does get to the heart of our system. I mean, that shouldn't be in America.
It does seem that if we're going to, again, take power away from the government, give it back to the people, and expect some degree of integrity in our government institutions, you're going to have to reform some sort of a moral base here.
Absolutely. I think that the founders were inherently anti-Machiavellian in the way that they looked at the world. I think that they saw America, they understood that mankind is inherently fallen, that the people, humans, are essentially will fall into temptation. They will do corrupt bad things. That's why they created a government that had all these checks and balances and countering ambition with ambition. But they still expected the American people to be virtuous people, to have the mores as passed down by the generations before them. What we need to do is create the institutions to balance against one another, not allow too much power in the hands of any one man or any one institution, give broad power to the American people, and hope the American people still have a strong moral foundation so that they can make the right decisions in their lives, so they can make the right decisions for their country. Without that, all these things really don't mean anything if the American people at the end of the day aren't fundamentally decent and good people.
Jarrett, thank you for taking a few minutes out to be with us.
Thank you very much.